In this video we're going to talk about changing the default printer in Control. We're going to cover what the default printer is and how it's defined, how do we change the default printer settings in Control, and finally we'll look at changing the printer on the fly. In Sirius, the default printer is the default printer in Windows. Sirius is going to look at your Windows setup to determine which printer it should use. So if I come to my Start button, Control Panel, and look at my printers, I see that I have a Lexmark 7500, the Microsoft XPS document writer, a QuickBooks PDF converter, and the Send to OneNote function for Office. If we look here, we see that the Lexmark 7500, which has the green checkup mark, is the default printer for this system. Back in Control, we're going to go to Setup, Machine Setup. In the column on the left, let's select Printer Types. If you look at the column in the center, you'll see 5 options for Default, Invoice, Work Order, Estimate, and Receipt. You can select a different printer for each type of those particular documents if you wish. If we look at our printer type names, Default, Invoice, Work Order, Estimate, and Receipt, they are all set to use the default settings, which means that no matter what sort of print type that we're going to produce, they're all going to go to the default printer that is set up on the current Windows system. Now, it's entirely possible that you may have one printer that you're going to want to print your work orders on, and perhaps a nicer or color printer that you're going to want to print your invoices or estimates on. The way that you would change this is, for example, select the printer type for invoicing. We could hit Edit, uncheck Use Default, and select this particular printer for our invoice printing and save. By the same way, we can go to Estimate and change it from the default printer to the same printer that we did the invoices on. Work orders will be fine. We want those to go to the default printer. Receipt can go to the default printer, etc. To change the default printer for the entire system, we would uncheck the default here. The Lexmark is the default in the system, but we're going to change it for the sake of this example, to the QuickBooks PDF converter. And that will change the printer settings in the system. Now, if we go to an order at this point and select Print Standard Invoice, when the Report Criteria menu appears, let's check our printer settings. Alright, if we go up to Printer and expand the Printer tab, if we look at the Printer tab default, it shows that our printer is the QuickBooks PDF converter, which is how we set it up in Machine Setup. If I drop the printer type down to Invoice, it's going to change the printer type to the printer that we selected for the invoice printer. The same thing is true with any other selection that we may have set up in Machine Setup. One last thing I would like to cover regarding printer setup is that at any time you can change the printer type on the fly. On the printer type, drop down to Custom, and that will permit you to select any of the printers that you have set up on your system. You can opt to print your copies out once with this custom setting, or you can save these settings as the default, and it will pull up the custom setting on the printer each time that you pull up that particular type of document. In closing, we need to remember that Control will look to the printer settings in Windows to select the default printer it's going to use, and that you may change the default printers in Setup, Machine Setup, printer types. I hope this video has been helpful.